Now, as we know, the resources of the governments, both at the central level as well as at the state government level, they primarily come from taxes. Now, if the government cannot raise adequate resources, obviously the delivery of public goods and services, and execution of welfare schemes, among other things, will be adversely impacted. So, for example, I would like just to take, take a bird's eye view, so to say, of the state of finances of the state government of Manipur, for example. Now, recently, the Honorable Chief Minister presented the board an account. It was not a regular budget. The regular budget, of course, is going to be, I think, presented shortly. So, for the financial year, fiscal year 22-23, the current fiscal year, the receipts of the state government have been projected around 32,800 crores, out of which, revenue receipts are about 24,000 crores. And the rest, of course, are capital receipts. Now, out of this revenue receipts of 24,000 crores, the state's own revenue is 2,800 crores. That is only about 11%, or about less than 12%. Okay, so the rest, of course, is grants from the center, and the state's share of central taxes, as we know. So, against these receipts, of about 32,000, the expenditures estimated is about 34,000 crores, which leaves a fiscal deficit of about 3,000 crores. That is the situation on one hand. Okay, so herein my point is, number one, you have a situation where the state is not able to raise adequate resources on its own. Only about 11% of the state's revenue receipts, they are on account of the own sources. Now let's look, for example, at a neighboring state, a much bigger state, Assam, for example. The Assam, the finance minister, she presented a budget for 22-23 recently. So I was just reading up, and I find that in Assam, for example, their revenue receipts are about 1 lakh crore, out of which the state's own generation of revenue is about 30%, about 30,000 crores. So against about 10%, in fact, historically in Manipur it has been around 9 to 10%. In the neighboring state of Assam, which is of course a much bigger state, you have about 30% of their revenue being generated from its own resources. In fact, in this year's budget of Assam, there has been a projection of a revenue surplus. So against revenue receipts, they will have less revenue expenditure, which means some of these revenue receipts will be freed up to make expenses towards capital expenditures. As you know, capital expenditures means, when we create assets in the form of infrastructure and so on. So this is a desirable situation. So this is probably what I think, as citizens also, and as educators here, as members of the business community, as students, I think we should all apply our minds together as to how to improve the finances of the state government. This is where, of course, the role of taxes come into play. But of course, at the level of governance, we also need to have more reforms. We need to have more initiatives and best practices so that we can raise more resources to fund developmental and social security and deliver quick and efficient delivery of services to the citizens. This is required because we want to, number one, bridge the gap between aspirations and realities, especially of the youth. The youth today, they have very high aspirations, and rightly so. Today we live in a small global village. We get information, instantly. We get everyone. In fact, now with the information age that we are in, I think the playing field has been leveled out. I think probably when we were students or when we were younger, there was some advantage, so to speak. If one could study in places like, for example, in India, places like Delhi or some other big city. But in my opinion, probably that advantage has diluted significantly. Any student studying from anywhere in the country, preparing for any kind of examination in the country, I think he or she is at par with any other student because of this information age that we're in. So rightfully so, the youth have high aspirations, and we need to ensure that the youth can achieve, in fact, can exceed those expectations. We also need to spur economic growth and generate employment opportunities by supporting entrepreneurship and skill development, and of course by making ease of doing business, as we like to say, not merely a slogan, but a mantra and philosophy of governance. The ultimate objective, in my opinion, is, as I said, to bring more and more fellow citizens out of poverty and to ultimately eradicate poverty from this country. And in this juncture, in fact, I would like to quote from the address of a former president and Bharat Ratna, Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, who remarked at the convocation ceremony of Manipur University in the year 2006, and I quote, moral leadership involves two aspects. First, it requires the ability to have compelling and powerful dreams or visions of human betterment. The second, moral leadership requires a disposition to do the right thing and influence others also to do right things. Unquote. So this task of nation building, as we stand here at this milestone of 75 years of independence, I think this has to be our extraordinary project of human betterment. All of us in our own individual capacities and also in our collective capacities need to take up this onerous task with the mindset of a leader with a certain moral fabric, as Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam has advised us. So ladies and gentlemen, as we slowly and steadily step out of the COVID-19 pandemic and embark on a road to recovery, both economic, social, psychological, and in other aspects, I offer my sincere gratitude to all the taxpayers and also call upon the educators, the entrepreneurs, and the youth to rededicate ourselves to this noble task of nation building with renewed vigor and commitment, so that the government can get its due revenue, which can then be utilized for developmental and welfare schemes, and thereby make this nation of ours into, as Dr. Kalam had envisioned, a developed country where every single citizen is assured of freedom from hunger, freedom from malnutrition, freedom from poverty, freedom from illiteracy, and of course freedom from unemployment. Thank you so much. Jai Hind.
Jai Hind, Jai Bharat.
Thanks a lot, sir, for your informative and inspiring words. Before we proceed further, I would like to address a small